The legal battle between Min Heejin and HYBE has been one of the most talked about controversies in K-pop this year, and the center of it all is a group that only debuted a year ago. Ever since ILLIT stepped into the spotlight, fans and insiders alike have been questioning just how original their image really is, with Min Heejin directly accusing HYBE and Belift Lab of blatantly plagiarizing NewJeans' concept. While the debate has been brewing for more than a year now, recent court developments have pushed these accusations into even more serious legal territory, and things are starting to get uglier than anyone ever expected. The tension between Min Heejin and ILLIT honestly started long before the courtrooms and negative headlines. From the moment ILLIT debuted, rumors began circulating that something about their vibe felt a little too familiar. It didn't take long for Min Heejin, the woman once credited with creating NewJeans' entire aesthetic from the ground up, to publicly call it out. By October 2024, things escalated fast. During a court hearing, Min Heejin submitted documents alleging that HYBE had molded ILLIT's entire concept using the same blueprint she had originally developed for NewJeans. Unfortunately for ILLIT, this meant they were being talked about more for controversy than for their music. To casual listeners, the group wasn't known for their own sound or identity, they were known as the NewJeans copycats. Even before Min Heejin's official accusations, people had already started comparing ILLIT's visuals, styling, and debut to NewJeans. Netizens argued their Lunar New Year handbox shoot looked almost identical to a NewJeans one from 2022. Then came the debut teasers, which fans said mirrored NewJeans' exact aesthetic down to the hazy urban filters. Even a NewJeans member's mom reportedly mistook ILLIT's concept photos for her own daughter's group. And with every comeback, the accusations piled up, from choreographies and font choices to music that some say sounded suspiciously close to unreleased NewJeans tracks Min Heejin had teased years earlier. The drama didn't stop there though, because netizens also dug up similarities in the typography used in ILLIT's album booklets, sticker designs, and even quirky 2D character animations that resembled NewJeans' style very closely. People also noticed their sponsorship layouts, their magazine photo shoots, and even their YouTube descriptions had the same tone and structure. From the way things were styled to how it was all finalized, it started feeling less like a coincidence and more like someone had taken NewJeans' entire concept and just changed the faces. But out of all the comparisons and accusations thrown around, one moment stood out as the most concerning: the idea that ILLIT wasn't just inspired by NewJeans, but that the group's entire existence was allegedly built on a stolen blueprint. On November 11th, 2024, Korean media outlet Hankyora dropped a shocking revelation. They had obtained and compared two internal planning documents, one labeled Belift Lab's new girl group plan, referring to ILLIT, and the other, the 2021 strategy proposal for NewJeans. The resemblance between the two wasn't just in tone or vibe, it was structural, visual, and strategic, and to many, uncomfortably identical. First, the design itself raised many eyebrows. Both proposals used the same fonts, layouts, and even shared a distinctive circular motif across all slides, a design choice that isn't particularly common in HYBE presentations. According to Hankyora, this wasn't a coincidence. Each HYBE subsidiary typically operates with its own unique formatting standards, and the circular graphic layout was one that Min Heejin herself had created back in 2020 while serving as HYBE's chief brand officer. She even mentioned publicly in May of that year that she designed the entire presentation format and keynote from scratch for NewJeans' internal branding strategy. So when Belift Lab's document used the exact same layout, including the same slide structure, spacing, and aesthetic choices, it didn't feel like creative overlap. Things got even messier when Min Heejin's side revealed that, under HYBE's instruction, she had previously shared that very NewJeans report with Belift Lab allegedly as a reference. But according to a leaked whistleblower recording published the same day, she never imagined it would be used as the foundation for another girl group. What made the claims harder to dismiss were the eerie parallels in the actual content. Both reports used the same core concepts: kinship, yearning, lifestyle influence, and even specific strategies like leveraging teen influencers. In the NewJeans plan, the strategy was to cultivate emotional intimacy through relatable figures in youth culture, using Emma Chamberlain as an example. Strangely enough, ILLIT's deck featured the same influencer and even spelled her name wrong in the same exact way. Similarities were also found on a more material level. Both plans emphasized building a sense of admiration and belonging, and both groups were pitched as lifestyle icons, not just idols. While NewJeans aimed to do this through a nostalgic Y2K aesthetic, ILLIT's version was more curated and polished, but the emotional language used to create this image was basically identical. One insider even remarked that Belift seemed to have swapped the word influencer for creator in an attempt to avoid plagiarism claims, but functionally, it meant the same thing. This raised a broader question: how could two branding documents supposedly created 3 years apart in an industry that changes at lightning speed look so alike. There's no denying that trends evolve fast in K-pop, so what made sense in 2020 wouldn't necessarily hold up in 2023. And yet, the core logic, visual direction, and business strategy behind ILLIT's debut plan barely deviated from what Min Heejin had proposed for NewJeans 3 years earlier. In response to the backlash, Belift Lab quickly denied the accusations. They claimed that ILLIT's branding and concept were finalized internally on July 21, 2023, well before they ever received the NewJeans planning document, which, according to them, only arrived on August 28th. They insisted that nothing from the NewJeans proposal could have influenced ILLIT's creative process. To reinforce their stance, Belift filed both a civil lawsuit and a criminal complaint against Min Heejin, accusing her of defamation and obstruction of business. HYBE also publicly stood by Belift's timeline, claiming it cleared them of any wrongdoing. Still, that didn't stop netizens or the press from poking holes in their defense. Many pointed out that even if ILLIT's final concept was designed by July, there's no way to know when the ideas that led to that final version were actually formed. Others argued that HYBE's internal timelines aren't independently verifiable and should be taken with a grain of salt, especially given the whistleblower's testimony. By the time the first court session was held on January 10, 2025, the tension between the two parties was higher than ever. Belift Lab officially filed a lawsuit against the former Adore CEO, demanding a whopping $2 billion won, which is about $1.37 million in damages. That same day, Source Music, another HYBE subsidiary, joined the legal battle with its own separate lawsuit for 500 million won, translating to roughly $343,000. It was clear that HYBE wasn't just trying to shut down the plagiarism rumors, they were going after Min Heejin with everything they had. Inside the courtroom, Belift's legal team didn't hold back. They said she had unfairly gone after ILLIT, a group that had barely even debuted, and that her words had seriously hurt the group's image, whether or not they were even true. The language was sharp, painting Min Heejin as someone deliberately sabotaging a younger group for her own gain. To defend ILLIT's similar choreographies, they made this odd comparison to taekwondo, saying K-pop dances are built on shared moves and that repeating patterns is normal in the industry. According to them, the important thing is how each group adds their own spin and personality. But instead of acknowledging that, Min Heejin supposedly acted like she invented every move and claimed it was all being stolen. Min Heejin's side, however, told a very different story. Her lawyer said this wasn't some personal attack or petty grudge, it was a real issue that started building up the second ILLIT debuted. They explained that from day one, people online had been pointing out how similar ILLIT was to NewJeans, and that Min Heejin actually tried to deal with it privately through internal emails. But instead of talking it out or trying to fix the problem, HYBE hit her with an audit that she later described as illegal, which basically pushed her to speak up in public and hold a press conference just to defend herself and her work. Min Heejin's legal team told the court that if they looked at the materials from both groups side by side, even the judge would probably get confused about who was who. They said the original NewJeans planning document, the one Min Heejin had made back in 2020, had been shared with Belift Lab way before ILLIT's concept was finished. They argued that, from their point of view, Min Heejin didn't lie nor exaggerate and definitely didn't defame anyone. In response, Belift's lawyers pushed back harder, calling Min Heejin's actions malicious and claiming she had purposely gone after ILLIT to tear them down before they could even build a fan base. They made it sound like she was trying to knock out the competition before the race even started, all to protect her own group and brand. While the parties were preparing for other court hearings, more plagiarism accusations were made. Yet again, the spotlight was on one of ILLIT's choreographies, a topic that has been sensitive since the group's debut. From the very beginning, fans had pointed out that certain dance moves in ILLIT's performances looked a little too familiar, particularly ones that match NewJeans' most iconic steps. At first, some ILLIT fans tried to brush it off, calling it a coincidence or even a tribute, but the general public wasn't buying it. Then, on July 18th of this year, during the third hearing of the lawsuit against Min Heejin, Belift Lab pulled a strange move, one that left fans confused and honestly a little annoyed. Rather than simply defending ILLIT against plagiarism claims, Belift tried to redirect the conversation entirely by suggesting that if Min Heejin believed ILLIT had copied NewJeans, then it was also fair to question whether NewJeans had stolen ideas from groups that came before them, specifically G-Friend. In an attempt to support this claim, Belift's legal team presented a series of side-by-side comparisons between NewJeans' visuals and G-Friend's past concepts. These included similar camera framing, such as full-length shots of the members running across bridges, vintage filters that switched from specific ratios, school uniform styling, and hanbok-themed imagery. Belift's legal team argued that if elements like red-colored structures by the ocean, selfies taken in front of Paris landmarks, LED billboards at COEX, and the way group photos were staged in a single line were all enough for Min Heejin to call out ILLIT for allegedly plagiarizing. Then the same standard could be applied to NewJeans, who, according to Belift, using that same rhetoric, copied concepts used by G-Friend several years ago. While the argument was strategic, the public was anything but happy that Belift was dragging G-Friend into this mess. On top of that, rather than seeing it as a smart legal counter, most netizens viewed Belift's move as a clumsy deflection that did little to address the core issue. Many pointed out that the visual similarities between ILLIT and NewJeans had been widely discussed and recognized before any official accusations were made, with casual listeners even mistaking ILLIT for NewJeans during their debut promotions, something that had never happened with G-Friend and NewJeans. To fans, dragging G-Friend into the conversation felt unnecessary and disrespectful, especially considering the group had nothing to do with the current conflict and has been disbanded for a while now. In another attempt to weaken Min Heejin's defense, Belift also criticized what they saw as the overly subjective nature of her plagiarism accusations. According to their legal team, Min Heejin's claims relied mostly on screenshots, fan-made comparisons, and online community posts rather than on any formal or legal standards of what actually constitutes plagiarism. They argued that simply pointing out shared visuals isn't enough to prove intentional copying, and that aesthetic overlap is inevitable in an industry where trends move fast. Belift didn't stop there, because they went on to accuse Min Heejin of applying a double standard, claiming that she was far more forgiving when similar allegations were aimed at NewJeans. They brought up the case of Bubblegum, a NewJeans track that once faced plagiarism allegations for its melody. At the time, Min Heejin reportedly dismissed the issue, saying the melody was based on a common compositional element, a phrase that Belift's legal team is now using against her to argue that she isn't applying the same logic when it comes to ILLIT. In response, Min Heejin's legal team stated that her comments weren't attacks or media stunts towards ILLIT. They were direct responses to an ongoing public discussion that had already taken over fan communities and online platforms. They pointed to conversations on sites like FM Korea and the Coup, as well as a testimony from a former HYBE employee to show that Min Heejin wasn't the one who started the comparisons. According to her team, the plagiarism accusations didn't come out of nowhere, but were part of a broader situation that included harsh press coverage. Essentially, they emphasized that Min Heejin spoke up due to the whistleblowing, not out of spite or as a personal attack on ILLIT. They claimed she was defending her creative work and the integrity of her team after feeling cornered by the way HYBE had handled the situation. After 3 court hearings, it's still not clear who is in the right in the eyes of the judges, but one thing is for sure, the public is tired of the constant back and forth, and many are fed up with unrelated parties being dragged into a mess they never asked to be part of.